Welcome back, Inebri-art. It's Andy as always. I feel like it's been ages since we've had an actor on the show. So I'm really happy for today's guest, Sarah Booth, who plays Yvette Nicole on Amazon Prime's Three Pines. I feel like that's a tongue twister.
It is
Amazon Prime Three Pines.
Amazon Prime's Three Pines.
So I will. I'm a totally honest person, and as I was telling you before, I don't like to sit around, so I don't watch a ton of TV. Like I have my streaming shows. I hadn't even heard of this one until I got like notification from your PR,
Mhm.
and like I love Alfred Molina. He's the star of it. So can you give us and us? I mean, me also. Like I watched the trailer, but like a little bit of a rundown of what the show is.
Of course, yeah. So basically, the show is called Three Pines. It's on Prime Video. As of December 2nd, we are releasing two episodes every Friday, and there's
Okay.
going to be a total of eight episodes. So it's a 4 week event. And the television show is based on the book series written by Louise Penny, who is a Canadian author that is from Toronto, but now she lives out where the books take place.
Hmm.
And she has 18 books out about Inspector Gamache, who is played by Alfred Molina. So it's this whole world where all these murders take place in the same town.
Okay.
And it's very, I would say the show feels very much like Fargo meets Twin Peaks vibe to it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I like that kind of weirdness. 'Cause I definitely had a feel in the trailer of that kind of I don't know supernatural, but like
Or
something's
like
off.
otherworldliness
Yeah,
to it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Hmm.
it definitely had the investigator cop true crime thing, but it didn't feel like a normal police procedural type show.
Well, yeah, and I think that's what's so fun about this show too, is that a lot of shows where it's, based around a detective, like the detectives are just dealing with so much, so many issues personally, like they're a lot of times they're addicts or,
Hmm.
their marriage is falling apart or they're haunted by something that, terrible that they've done. So I think it's a really interesting character for Alfred to play because this guy he's a really good guy. He has an amazing wife. He loves his job. He has a great team around him. Of course, things happen in the
Yeah,
show,
I was
but
gonna say it sounds happy. Screw
yeah,
that
you're
guy.
like, oh, this sounds boring.
I hate him already.
No. But what's fun about him is that because he's more of like a straight arrow, he likes to get into the psychology of the murders. He not only wants to solve a murder, he wants to know why that
Hmm.
person did what they did, which is really, I think, the core of the show is the why. And he's such an empathetic man that I think I feel like the world needs a little empathy. And I feel like it's really refreshing to have a character that is willing to understand why people do what they do and that is willing to also accept that every single person is capable of doing some pretty crazy shit.
Yeah, and that's uh and always an interesting thing is like I see so many people just jump to the second someone's a suspect, it's they should throw away the key or whatever. And I'm like, but what was their motive? Like why did they do it? And it
Yes.
and it seems like no one cares about the motive until it becomes like a true crime podcast or true, that's when they want to know. But like when it's happening in real time, they don't seem interested in the motive.
Yeah, exactly. And well, what's really funny is my one of my best friends is absolutely obsessed with true crime. And she texted me the other day. She's like, I'm listening to my podcast and they have a commercial for Three Pines. And I was like, yes,
That's
because
cool.
I feel that it is, we do lean into the why. And I think that's why, true crime is so interesting. And I just think it's a nice little marriage between both. Like you have the procedural aspect that every week is two episodes, but it's
Hmm.
one book. So every week you have a who done it,
Yeah.
and then you have the arcing story of the missing and murdered Indigenous women. So you get like that kind of like, tied in a bow at the end of every week, but then you still have this like season arc um, mystery going on. So I think it's fun for everyone. The true crime fans are getting a little bit of what they need. The procedural fans are getting what they need. And then, more of like the
The
bingers and
overall
streamers,
story. Yeah.
yeah, are getting kind of what they need. So it's kind of fun.
I do love how it seems to be this ongoing trend. And I want to say, I feel like Disney Plus started it, of dropping shows not all at once and
Mm-hmm.
giving you time to like. I feel like those shows are more interesting to me because it gives me that time to kind of like catch up with friends over a beer and be like, "Oh man, have you caught the new episode?" And then you kind of like talk about theories. When you binge it, it's like you binge it and you don't have time to like really absorb it, and it's just gone.
Yeah, I agree. Like, what's fun with the people who want to binge, just like, try to stay offline for like a little bit, and then they can allow the show to play and then binge in the new year. But, people who do enjoy the week to week can also have that fun anticipation. And I prefer the week to week. I find it spreads it out because,
Mm-hmm.
again, when you binge, like I remember watching every season of Ozark that I watched is like, okay, I need a recap. What happened? What are the theories? There's just like, it's been so long since you've seen the previous season. So
Yep.
I just think it keeps, I feel like, we digest it a little bit more, like marinate, especially, with series that take a little bit more. I don't know, I guess like there's a little bit more of like a philosophical aspect to, series. It's fun to sit down, like you said, and have a drink with a friend and be like, okay, where do you think this is going? Or how did you feel about the last episode? That's really fun to do.
Yeah.
Especially, when you understand, like, we're in media, so we understand, story structure and kind of how, to make media and television shows. So I find it's really fun to sit down and just kind of in a good way tear it apart and figure it out.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like we don't have cliffhangers like we used to. I mean, go way back. There was years between Luke, I'm your father, and you getting confirmation. And so it was like years of speculation, as opposed to now just being like, play next episode.
Yeah.
So that's why it was meaningful, is because it kept people guessing. And
So you must be loving Andor, or you must have loved Andor.
so this is, I
I
have
didn't
this
watch it.
conversation. Oh, you haven't? Okay, so
No,
I
but
won't do
my husband
spoilers.
did. My husband
Okay,
absolutely loved it.
I am loving the new Star Wars stuff that is not directly related to characters we know.
Hmm. Hmm.
Obi-Wan, I was meh. Boba Fett, I was kind of thought was bland. Um, but like the Mandalorian, Andor, Rogue One, all amazing. So I'm
Yeah.
like, just make stuff in that universe and make it good.
Well, because I feel like, with characters that already exist, they're almost writing for that character, which sometimes doesn't
I almost feel like they
serve
write
it
for the
well.
fans,
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like they know
Yeah.
what works with the character, so they
Yeah.
cater to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, again,
Just
it's just like just write that character's voice.
yeah.
Don't say, well, fans really liked it when they did this or did that, so let's do that again. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah, they want to see
but
Obi-Wan fight Darth Vader, and I'm like, I don't really care. I saw that. I can go see that again.
yeah, and I think
Um,
it's important to remember too that they have to make shows that are appropriate for a younger generation,
mhm.
shows that are appropriate for people that like, saw it in theaters when they were children. So, and I feel like fans can rip things apart, especially Star Wars. So I just think it's important to be aware of that, of like,
Yeah,
who is this for? It might be for your kids and you can enjoy it with a different
sure.
lens,
Yeah.
or whatever. But like, that's something that's come up with our show too. We have a huge fan base on our show of the books that are like diehard Louise Penny fans. And
Yeah.
of course, like love them. We need them. And most of them love the series. Like we've been really lucky. Like most of them really, really like it. Some people just can't, get the books out of their head, and that's fine, as long as you're aware. I think
it,
you just
it
need the
and that's
awareness.
always, you always hear people like, oh, the book is better, the book is better. And there's a certain part of a book being better because the visuals you generate yourself. So like
There's no
if
budget.
yeah, well, if the character is described as the most beautiful woman in the world, you're gonna picture what you think is, and then you go to
Yeah,
see the movie and you're like, no, or the scariest thing they've ever seen. Like you're gonna fill that into what you think. So it just hits so close to home because you're the one who's kind of putting in all those like key points.
exactly. And also, like, I just feel like you said, everyone has their version of whatever's described in the book, and everyone's imagination is just way, so different and
Mm-hmm.
has no budget to their
Oh,
imagination, right?
sure,
So
yeah,
a
yeah.
television show does. I remember me and my husband made a slasher film like about 10 years ago, and I think there's about 8 seconds total of gore in the movie, and people were like, it's so gory, oh my gosh. Like, a girl like left the theater in
Mm-hmm.
one of our screenings and like couldn't come back in.
No, that's a good
And
compliment for a slasher film.
right, but what it was is that we would just cut, like, just as, like, there's one scene where there's like a nail coming out, and it's like just as it starts to move, but then your mind
Fills in the rest,
fills
yeah.
in the most disgusting thing you could think of, and we didn't have to spend that money. So we were like, good job, good job, good job.
There's a really I think it was Ivan, it's either Ivan Reitman or Harold Ramis who was telling the story about how they were working on Ghostbusters, and it was like the test audience, and they were screening, and it's the part where Dana opens her fridge, and then you see like the demon dog and yell Zool or whatever. And he said the best like jump scare they ever got was the effects weren't done, and it was like a still image that basically said like, effects go here. And it was just like this unexpected like jolt that people were like, ah! you know
Yeah,
yeah,
thinking of like the scariest thing that
yeah.
would be in there. Yeah,
And then he's like, when we put the effects in, it was nowhere near as scary. So
that's
that's
so
so
fun.
great.
I wonder if that's gonna be like the future of media one day, where it's like you sit down with like your best friend and you watch a movie, but you both watch like a different version of like the
Hmm.
same movie. That, like, I don't know, it's like some like futuristic stuff, but I guess you would like have to download like your imagination, and
So
then
it would be like Stitch Fix, where you like upload your likes and dislikes to a movie, and then you get like the
yeah,
response. That'd be interesting.
it'd be interesting, but it'd also be so sad. I feel like they could only do it with like tentpole film.
Yeah, it would also be really difficult to then have that discussion about the movie with your friend,
Right.
because you'd be like, "Oh, wasn't the axe murderer scary?" And they'd be like, "He didn't have an axe," like so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, he had a bazooka, what? um but it'd be just like discussing anything on the internet with anyone today, so
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. That's sadly accurate.
yeah.
Speaking of scary movies on the internet, did you see Don't Look Up?
Don't look up. Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, I was
yeah,
like, for some reason I was thinking of Don't Worry, Darling, and I was like, yes, I've seen Don't Look
yeah.
Up. Yes.
Don't Look Up. That is immediately what I thought of when you said that, and it was probably the most frightening movie I've seen in a long time. I literally had to sit, I think, 3 sittings because I'm like, it's
Oh
just too
yeah, because it's
much.
so frustrating.
Yeah,
But I think like that's why people didn't like it, because they were like, oh, it's so dumb, it's so frustrating. It's like, yeah, that's the point.
yeah.
It's just like
It's so accurate.
how, yeah, how
Yeah.
accurate this is, where people are just like, ah, whatever, like, let's just spin this and do this. And it's just like all for like the benefit of the moment of not being canceled. But it's like detrimental to the world.
It- so in kind of that same vein, it's always an interesting thing that as a visual artist back in the day, I had to come to terms with, and I talked to a lot of musicians that have to come with. Do you struggle with getting cast in like, okay, this movie's a paycheck. I don't really care about like this topic doesn't interest me, or but it's a job, so I have to opposed to one that maybe like really catches your interest? Do you ever have that kind of struggle, or is it just the idea of a new role is exciting?
Like most of the time I'm just excited to work, but there's definitely some projects that, like I think working is better than not working,
Hmm.
unless it's like something that, is, all the jobs I do are union jobs. So most of the time it's like pretty well done, right? Or
Yeah.
at least like, you're not just like showing up in the middle of nowhere, like, hello, like it's professional.
Yeah.
Um, so there's definitely like some jobs, more of like the movie of the weeks and things like that, you know, a lot of the times you'll maybe say like, oh yeah, I'll just, I'll do it for the paycheck. But I always end up having so much fun on them anyways, because you're meeting so many amazing actors and directors that, are just the same as you, trying to, just make a living and, but like not do a random job, do it
Yeah.
in, do what they really love. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like every job so far that I've taken has always been like with enthusiasm. Or if at first I'm like, oh, I don't know, like, yeah, let's just do it because I need to pay my rent. Like I find like the fun immediately
Yeah.
within the people. If the project doesn't excite me, then the people do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good, I like that. And I like the idea of remembering that, yeah, it's not a real job. And I have to constantly remind myself of that. And, it's weird. So sometimes I have to remind myself being like, normal people don't do what I do. Like, this is not a normal job. I have a hard time explaining it to people. But then there's also times where I'm having so much fun that I have to turn to my business partner and go, we're working right now, right? Like, this is our job. How stupid is this? Um, so it's nice to realize how fortunate you are. But I think it's just when you take it so seriously, like, professionals do, that it sometimes you're just like, everyone has bad days, I guess.
totally. And like that's one thing that I really learned on like working with Alfred this past year was just that he's been on like, huge movies,
Yeah, for
Spider-Man,
sure.
like, hello, Frida, just so many giant films that he just doesn't take himself too seriously, because I think it's like, yeah, I've been on the giant film. I've done the biggest thing I could do. And you still end up at the end of, X amount of months of working on a movie, you end up without a job like
Yeah.
everyone else, or some people have things going on after, but we all end up on the next thing, or so I think it's just really important to like never take yourself too seriously. Know that like this is where it's like such a privilege to do the job that we do. And as much as sometimes I have that guilt of like, I can't believe I get to do what I love and so many people don't, but to just really take it, like in a way, take it seriously, but don't take it seriously. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, for
Like
sure. Yeah.
really appreciate that you get to do this and take it in, but know that it could be your last time doing it. So just, soak it up and enjoy it. I'm speaking with so many people right now and they're all saying like huge moment for you in your career. Like what's next? Are you turning down stuff? And I'm like, no, like I'm just chugging along, going on to the next thing, going on to the next thing, hoping there's a next thing. And I think it's just important to keep your head on, not think, oh, I've done one thing, therefore, what's like, who's going to give me my next thing? Like, not to have that ego, you
Yeah.
really have to just appreciate every single job.
And I like that you mentioned kind of your career like starting to take off, because I was, in my seconds of research, I was scrolling through your IMDb page, and it looks like you've been in some like increasingly predominant, you were in some Star Trek, Why the Last Man, which I have to say I was super getting into, and then they announced that they were canceling it and I just stopped watching.
Yeah. I
But
think that's what happened to a lot of fans, I think it's really shitty for a network to do that.
yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
Like, it was really good.
Yeah.
Who did you play in that? I was trying to like, I
I
saw the
played
name of your character and I couldn't like piece together who it was. Like,
I played the woman, spoiler alert, the woman that Missy Pyle ended up killing. in the woods because she maybe you didn't get that far.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Like
I was
you,
kind of like the leader of the girls, and then all of a sudden Mitzi comes in and wants to take over, but she realizes, pretty sure I got to take this girl out if
yeah.
I want these girls to follow me. Yeah.
Is like a death scene awesome to
Yeah. Oh
like
my God, I
act
have seen
at.
my own squib, and just like Missy was so fun to work with. Like she's just a riot. She invited us all over after like the group of girls all got cast, and we just like hung out and like drank margaritas in her backyard and got to know her, and
Oh,
she's just
nice.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So funny.
What was it like acting against someone like Alfred Molina? I feel like at a certain level, is it hard to not just be like that's Alfred Molina the whole time, or want to like quote their lines back to them, or
For me, the most intimidating part was when I first met him.
Mhm.
We had a rehearsal like maybe a week before we started production while we were doing costume fittings and makeup tests and all that stuff. So we had a rehearsal with me, Alfred, Rossif, and Elmaya, and also a police officer so that we could, just ask all the dumb questions that we needed to ask without everyone knowing about it. Um, and I was super nervous. I got there early and I was just like waiting for them to come, and I hadn't met any of them. And then as soon as you meet him, you're just like, okay, like he's just like, you're just like, okay, it's just a normal person.
Yeah.
But I think it's like the anticipation of meeting him was big, but then his vibe is so chill and relaxed and playful. And the first thing I did when he walked in the room is so like Yvette. I didn't realize how close I was to this character until after. Is I gave him a jar of maple syrup. I was
Why?
like, "Welcome to Canada,"
Oh, okay.
and he was like, "Thank you." And then he told me he's like, "Oh my gosh, this shit is delicious," and I was like, "I know," um, but yeah, like he was just really, really sweet. And of course, like during production, you're always like, "It's Brad." Like as soon as I found out he was part of the project, like the project just elevated like 100 times for me.
Did you
I
feel more
knew.
pressure because of it?
Oh yeah, because
Yeah.
so when I first got the audition breakdown, I read it and it said producers behind the crown. And I was like, oh my God, like thank you, casting director, but like not gonna happen for me because I just assumed they would bring in like names, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know Alfred was attached. It said that the character of Gamache had been cast, but they didn't mention who it was. So I auditioned, and because the casting director that requested the audition, my very first film and television audition was with her. So it was very like, oh, thanks, Andrea. Thanks for like thinking I could do this. Great.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do this audition for you because she knows me so well that I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like be funny and throw spaghetti at the wall. And I did. And I think the fact that I didn't give a shit, not that I didn't give a shit, that I didn't expect anything from it, gave me all the freedom to just create this really fun character. Because I sent my tape in, let it go, forgot all about it. And about a month later, my agent called me and she was like, hey, remember that audition for Three Pines? And I was like, gosh, I had to like look up the email. I was like, yeah. She's like, they're really interested in you.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, but they think like your audition was just like way too wild. I was like, oh, okay. She's like, they want you to do it again, but just ground her a little bit more. Sure, no problem. So I gave them, really grounded Yvette. And then she was like, oh, they saw, like the range you
The
could get.
range,
You
yeah.
went to kind of from like schmack D to like grounded. And she's like, they want to meet with you. So we met on Zoom and we found a middle ground and found who she was. And I'm so lucky that I didn't think I would get it because I think I would have cared too much if I actually thought I could have got it.
Mhm.
So, yeah, it kind of worked to my benefit to just have low expectations. I guess. Well, I think it's
It's
just also like, as actors, like we audition for so many things
Mhm.
that, you have to train your brain to like audition, let go, forget, audition, let go, forget. Because if you remember all of them, like you will be very upset and very sad about all the things you did not book.
Yeah. I think there's something to that not giving a shit, quote unquote, where it kind of I mean, basically any creative field we're playing, you know,
Yeah,
we're being kids for professionally, you know,
totally.
and not giving a shit really just kind of shuts off that kind of voice in your head that gets in the way of being like, oh, you shouldn't do that or that's not good enough. And you just kind of, you get to produce whatever it is. And, you know, it may not be perfect, but it's going to be genuine.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's what's so important. Like, I don't think anyone expects art to be perfect, but people expect it to be genuine. And you can feel that when something was created, like you said, when you're like in flow and that voice is not talking to you saying, "Oh, really?" or "No one cares about this," or whatever that voice is to people. I think it's so important to be able to block it out, and it's a muscle. It's a
Mm-hmm.
muscle. You're not going to be able to like read a book about it and then do your first audition and be like, "Oh, they're perfect." I
That
think
was
it's
easy.
something. Yeah, yeah. I think it's something that happens, and with time you just get used to whatever the rules or the parameters are around your art or your industry, and you just kind of get used to it. And I think that's why, like, so many people that start out get so discouraged and quit, because it just takes time. It
Mm-hmm.
takes time, it takes practice. And yes, sometimes it happens, boom, for someone right at the beginning, first couple auditions, boom, you book something huge. But then you have to remember that once you get off that show, you have a whole other journey
Right.
that some people got to do in the beginning that you have to do after, when you're a little bit more in the spotlight. So I think it just depends, on your path. But for me, people are like, "Oh, wow, like this is such a big show for you." And then you start talking about like your career, and I'm like, "Yeah, man, I've been doing this for like 20 years."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm so proud of the show, and I again, I didn't think I would get it, but now that I did, and that I've worked on it and I've seen it, and I'm like, wow, yeah, it was time. It was time for
Mm-hmm.
me to be able to play a role where you're not just there for either a day or a week or 2 weeks. It's like you get to really create the character, have a say, get to really, just collaborate with all these amazing people around you, and people. It feels nice to have people listen to your input, versus again, like when you sometimes you do a guest star or an under five line, and you get on set and you have some ideas, and all you get is, "Oh, just do what you did in your audition." And you're like, "Okay, like I get it. That's
Right.
this gig, fine." But it feels good to be able to do the opposite sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that or had that moment on the set of Three Pines where you're like, because one of the things we talk about a lot on the show is imposter syndrome. Because my job is weird, I get it a lot. Um, but did you ever have that where you're like, oh my God, like, why am I here? Like, I was terrible today. Are they going to find out that, like, I don't, like, I think, they're going to fire me? Like, did you have to deal with that?
Yes, I definitely had that. Like, maybe not in the way of like, I'm going to get fired, but I definitely thought like, oh, like, I don't know. It was more of like, I can't believe like this is happening. Like, are you sure
Yeah, that kind of
that
surreal
this is
moment
real,
where you're
right?
like, oh,
Like, it was
that's,
almost like a pinch me thing happening.
yeah.
Even now, it's weird because usually when I watch the show, or like a show that I'm in, I will, I'm able to watch it. Like, I'm able to watch myself, but I always have that like, oh, yeah, here I am. And like, I can't really like enjoy the show because there's
I
my
mean, it's
scene.
hard because, like,
Yeah.
in order
It
to
takes you out of it,
enjoy,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But with Three Pines is I can watch the show and not even like not even almost see that it's me in a way. Like,
yeah.
I can just watch it and enjoy it, which is really fun to do. But I think it's also because I didn't have to, a lot of my other roles, it's a lot of drama. I do a lot of high stakes, like
Hmm.
I'm either like being aggressed or aggressing someone. It's a lot of those kinds of roles. So I think because like I went through something on set, you have to get to a certain point on set. Like, maybe when I watch myself, like I have that like that visceral like, oh, I remember that. But watching Three Pines, I just had so much fun on set that I think I just have so much fun watching myself, because I like, when I went on set, I literally just like took all my senses and went, and just it was
Yeah.
like reacting to everything around me, which is so much fun. So I think it's just a very different experience watching this show. But yeah, like I can't believe I'm in it. Like I still can't believe I'm like, this is so cool. Like I text with Alfred Molina. Like this is crazy.
Yeah,
That's
that's
crazy.
always one of those like weird moments. Um, so a good friend of mine, he's actually one of the founders of Inebri-art. He was the guy who said to me, like, we should start a drink and draw. Um, he's doing his own graphic design and design company now, and he does a lot of 3D printing. And through like a long convoluted story, he ended up making some action figures for John Cena and James Gunn.
Amazing.
And so I said to a friend of mine, I'm like, if it was a life and death situation, I could get a message to John Cena, and they're like, "What would that be?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but I could do it."
Something about a dance number, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just know a guy. I have a John Cena guy,
Yeah,
it, it,
exactly.
and it's
It's
just
just
it is.
it's
It,
so crazy, like
yeah,
when those things happen, where you're just like, well, that's the reason I really love living in Los Angeles because it felt like it was real when we lived down there. You go to
yeah,
a coffee shop and you're like, oh, that's that person, or oh, like they're doing groceries. I don't know. It just felt like it just felt more like tangible and like real. Because I grew up in a small town where like I didn't even think acting could even be a profession. I didn't even think people on TV were real people. You know what I mean? Like it
yeah,
didn't
yeah.
occur to me. So I think, yeah, being in a city where you're just like, I was at a chili cook-off in someone's backyard and like Maya Rudolph walked in. And I was like, I
Yeah.
love her. I was a little intoxicated and talked to her, but that's fine. She
Did you
thought it was
make a
cute.
fool of yourself?
My husband was like, yeah. So like, it's such a cool world once you get into it. A lot of people get into it and hate it and don't have a good time. But I have to say, I've been having a great time, and I also work hard to keep it a good time because it's easy to go negative and it's easy to get defeated. But I think the fact that I do have a partner who I can create with, and that it gives us some kind of sense of control, and the little control we have in this industry has definitely kept me sane. Being able to say, hey, I haven't worked in a year, let's make a movie because I don't know what else to do with myself right now.
So,
Yeah.
do you do what you just said, like hit home? Because I don't do well with downtime. Like, I
Mhm.
need to be doing something all the time. So, I have like multiple projects going on. That's when I'm happiest. I like to collaborate with people. Do you like to have downtime, or when you have downtime, you start to be like get antsy and be like, let's make something even? Yeah.
I do not like initially I don't like downtime. I like for someone else to keep me busy. Like on a project, if I'm acting, I'm busy. It's great. But when there's downtime, I feel like in the past it's been like difficult, like mentally and all those aspects. But I feel like, again, I've found some ways to keep myself busy.
Hmm.
And now, even with Three Pines, I did a whole season of the show. I knew I would probably well, I didn't know. I was like, oh, maybe I'll get off the show and jump on something else. But in the first month, right away, like I teach fitness through a studio in Los Angeles. I hit up the studio and I was like, put me back on the schedule. Because like the worst thing is you get into this like little pattern of like, oh, maybe I don't want to do anything, and you kind of get stuck into that. So for me, as long as I have something that's keeping me going, that is not self-motivated is really
Hmm.
important for me. Like, stay in touch with the community, that kind of stuff. So because you can't rely on this industry. You could work nonstop for a year and then it's crickets for two, and it just has nothing to do with your talent. It's just, what's happening. So when I have downtime, I just try to be productive in moving my body and some kind of creative outlet, whether it's writing or producing, somewhere in that.
Yeah.
Keep me
And I
happy
mean,
and good.
I think that's even just sets great advice for even non-creative people. Well, I mean, the person I'm thinking of is a creative person, but he doesn't work full time at it. Um, Bass player, friend of the show, Cheese, and for like all summer long, he was doing like these Thursday get-togethers, and it would just be like, "Hey, it's Thursday. Let's go throw a frisbee. Let's get out and do something, and just be active and move." And like I talked to him, he's like, I was doing it for myself, really, but so many people are like, "Oh, that's such a cool idea." It's just it becomes like, all right, that's my reason to get out, and then it becomes like, oh, what are you doing Thursday? Oh, I can't. I'm doing this thing.
Yeah,
And so it's just kind of like I feel like people live in kind of cycles. Like if you can get pushed into something that you're doing and you do it like I don't know 3 months in a row, and then it becomes a habit, and then you kind of like build it as a habit, and then you kind of need it.
totally. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's the only way like moving my body became like I knew it was always felt good, but until I became a fitness instructor and I had, it's like you have a schedule during the week where you're teaching this
Yeah.
amount of classes and it becomes a routine that when I didn't, I was like, oh gosh, I need to move. I need to move or something. Yeah. It's like creating that habit for sure. Like my husband started once a month and we're in Windsor right now across from Detroit. He has a brewery that we go to once a month and all the creative people come and we just hang out and chit chat. And some people, are like, hey, let's make this together. And it just like starts,
Mm-hmm.
it just like warms up the pot, to get
Yeah.
people to reach out or, some people it's hard for them to pick up the phone and be like, hey, do you want to make like a short that won't make any money with me? Most people are like, no.
Yeah.
But if you're like having a couple beers, you're like, yeah, let's make something, like I just think it's like really important. Sorry, my dogs are barking.
Oh, that's fine.
Um,
Dogs get a pass on this show. So
what?
I said dogs get a pass on this show.
Yeah,
I'm a
they
big
do. They
dog
do.
person. So
Yeah, they do.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just it's as creative people, it's hard to have that business aspect as well, that we're just not used to. Um, and it's something I wish they would have taught me in theater school because
It's interesting because after being in art school, I was like, the one thing that's really missing is marketing.
yeah,
Because you can be the most talented artist if you're not even comfortable with talking to people about your artwork, you're not going to go anywhere, and so you need that kind of person who's willing to speak on your behalf if you're not going to do it. That's really you know, if you're doing it in a closet, no one knows.
yeah, exactly. Here,
Yeah.
keep talking for a second. I'm just
Sure.
gonna go hide in the closet when my dog barks.
Oh, it's fine. Like he wasn't. Oh, poor guy.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm currently at my parents' house, which is where actually like an hour away from where we shot the series. But there's dogs and construction happening, so busy
Yeah.
holidays.
Yeah. I mean, it's that time of year, right?
Yeah.
What is your dog's name?
My dog's name is Puck.
Puck.
And he looks like just a little baby Ewok. He's the cutest little dude. He's going to be 13 in February.
Oh, he's an old
And
little dude then.
he actually acts. Okay. We put him in some of our movies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like whenever there's like a dog, we
Yeah.
always put him in, and he always gets a lot of love whenever he's in our projects.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I'm having so much fun. I hate to do this, but like, where can people go to find out more about what you're working on? You said Three Pines was out on the 2nd of this month, so it's currently up on Prime Video, so they can check it out. What day of the week does it drop? All the promotional
Yeah, sure.
nonsense that we got to do.
Yeah, sure. So, our show dropped on the 2nd. It also has 2 episodes every week. So, as of next Friday, it's going to be the last one. So, they do drop on Friday, but I believe most people can catch it on Thursday nights because of the time change.
Oh, the time change. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
So, a lot of people are sneaky and have figured out that it drops Thursday. And if people want to find me, the best place to find me would be on Instagram. My handle is at Sarah Film Booth. And if they want to watch, a little different side of me, they can definitely check out either Last Call, which is on Peacock, Tubi, Amazon Prime, and also YouTube.
Okay.
Or they can also catch The Scarehouse, which is a slasher film that we made for Universal Studios that I believe you can still watch on Amazon Prime as well.
I take it you're a big horror fan.
I love horror,
Yeah.
but honestly, I would say like I love like I grew up with like Scream and that kind of stuff. Like my
Mhm.
husband's really into more of like he loves like Freddy Krueger and all more like the old school
Yeah.
horror movies. But yeah, I'm more like I grew up with like, oh my gosh, Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, like those ones, kind of like
Yeah.
the shitty ones, but I love them. I love them. They were
I
so
think
good.
all horror movies on some level are kind of
Are kind of
shitty.
shitty. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's
Shitty in
what
a
makes them
great
fun.
way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, totally. That's the thing. I love movies that are self-aware.
Yeah.
Those are really fun.
To a certain extent, I don't like. I was talking with someone the other day. Like the first Sharknado is fine, but all the other ones after, I'm like, yeah, you're being low budget to be low budget. Like it lacks that sincerity that we were talking about. Like
Yeah.
you weren't trying your hardest and missed. You're trying to be that.
Exactly. Yes. Like The Room, where we're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Although now he's like,
oh,
no, no, I meant to do that. And
yeah, you're like,
sure, you
sure.
did.
Say whatever you need to make yourself feel better, my friend.
Awesome. Well, Sarah, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. I am definitely putting Three Pines on my list to watch,
Please do.
and I wish you the best. I hope they pick it up for a second season.
Me
Um,
too. We're hearing good things, but
okay,
nothing official,
right,
Until I'm
excellent.
standing on set saying words,
Yeah, it's
that's
not
when
gonna.
I'll
Yeah,
celebrate.
that's when you should. Yeah, and maybe we'll get Puck on someday for his own interview.
Oh, it would be fantastic. If you have chicken, he'll do anything.
Oh, okay. I'll keep that in mind. But
And
I think,
if you if you love talking shop about movies and all that, well, obviously,
yeah,
you should have my hubby on. He's
for
awesome,
sure.
and he'll
Oh,
talk your ear off.
so we'll sign off and then I won't disconnect and we'll like change some information so we can get him on.
Let's do it.
Okay. So for our listeners, thank you so much. And so apparently we're gonna have Sarah's husband and dog on.
Yes, it's a
uh,
family affair.
yeah, that'd be great. And so you guys can listen to us next week. And as this one will be going up next Monday, I want to wish all our listeners a happy new year because they'll be heading into the New Year's. So we'll catch you guys again next week. And thanks for checking out the show today, listeners. If you enjoyed the content today, you can go over to patreon.com/Inebri-art to support the show. You can join over there for just a few dollars a month and help us provide this fun content that you just checked out. You can also email us at Inebri-art.com with your questions, complaints, and concerns, or you can find us on all social medias at Inebri-art or at Inebri-art6 on Instagram. And also don't forget to check out our other shows, Bar Talk Podcast, Old Colony Cast, Inebri-art, and all the other shows on the Inebri-art Network, which you can find at Inebri-art.com. Thanks again for listening.